Internet addiction amongst adolescents. Thousands of parents struggle with their adolescent children being addicted to the internet and devices, leading to serious psychological and physical consequences. While there are many socio-economic factors that lead to such addiction, an extremely interesting study by researchers at Bengaluru's NIMHANS has found specific aspects of parental behavior that could heighten the risk of such addiction. Aspects like decreased care and increased control from mothers specifically, rejection from both parents, and increased autonomy from fathers are flagged off from that study as risk factors. Joining us now, Dr. Bino Thomas, Associate Professor of Psychiatric Social Work at NIMHANS, who led that study. He joins us. Sir, thank you so much for taking time out to speaking to us. Some very deep findings in your study, but before we discuss the core details of this relationship, could you quickly explain to us how you define internet addiction? Given that all of us use and are dependent on the internet, when do we define an adolescent as being addicted to internet?
Well, we can actually look for certain indicators. For example, there is a continuous desire to use internet-based activities, and this use becomes the prioritized activity in their life. And thirdly, there is continuous use despite the knowledge of harm. And the fourth point is there is functional impairment, especially when it comes to adolescent. It starts affecting their social life, peer relationship, and their academics. So in a way, you would actually see that there is a craving, there is a compulsion, and there is also a coping. They use internet for dealing with their negative emotions, and there is a consequence of these internet-based activities.
Well, sir, the study throws up some very interesting findings on aspects of parental behavior and how that could push an adolescent to internet addiction. Can you elaborate on the key findings, like, for instance, rejection by parents?
There are several studies which talk about parental behaviors that causes mental health issues in adolescents and children. Now, our study primarily looked at if there are any parental behaviors which are closely associated with internet addiction among adolescents. And we found that when both parents actually use more of control, or when they are actually rejecting the needs of adolescents, we see that there is a higher chances of adolescents getting into internet-based activities or addiction. So which would mean that sometime parents may not have adequate time, or sometime parents may not think that this is an important issue for the adolescents to be dealt with. Hence, they may not adequately spend time with them, wherein they may not be able to understand what adolescent is going through, wherein, as I said, adolescent might end up using internet-based activities to cope with their own emotional issues.
Sir, interestingly, the study also throws light on certain aspects of how mothers relate with or deal with adolescents vis-a-vis a father's relationship, and reveals possible trends.
Correct. Traditionally, we have a society where fathers used to be the control center and mothers to show the affection. In the recent literature and studies, we find that fathers have actually started spending a little more affectionate role, and then mothers actually have taken up more control. So this is also indicate that probably mothers are actually doing so many things for their children, and they know what is best for the child. But resorting to this control mechanism with adolescents becomes a major challenge, because adolescents want freedom. They want to use their own brain to do things, wherein the parents might feel that they need to guide them, and it is their responsibility to guide them. So wherein they may not feel a lot of confidence with adolescents for their own decision making, and that's where they actually get into conflict. So here we actually started seeing that mothers actually doing more controlling behaviors rather than the fathers. And in the study, we also found that when fathers are actually less control centric, we find that the adolescent internet based activity is actually less. We really have to actually re-examine if that is true.
Sir, most importantly, from all this study, what should parents do to ensure their children are not driven to internet addiction? I mean, what should a father be most conscious about, and what should a mother be most conscious about?
I really do not want to blame the parents that it is because of them the children actually get into addiction behaviors. There are also child-related issues that actually makes them get into internet addiction. Basically, there are a couple of indicators. If they have learning-related issues, or they have hyperactivity-related issues, or there is an emotional or another behavioral problem, they all actually become additional factors. Now, every family has their own stories and narratives. So in a platform like this, I would be able to actually tell the parents that they really need to examine if any of their behaviors prevent adolescents to openly communicate with them or confide information with parents. So they really have to change that kind of a behavior so that there is an open communication is enhanced at family. And most importantly, if there is an open communication, if that is improved in a family level, that actually gives more chance for the parents to trust the adolescents, and it also gives a chance for the adolescents to believe in the parents. So what happens is that in such kind of a situation, the judgmental attitudes that actually get reflected in parental behaviors, in rejection or control behaviors, will also be minimized. Often parents say that this child is always on the phone, but child has a different story. I am actually doing homework or some other things. But parents, when they view it, it is basically always on the phone. So open communication is the key. And in that, we also need to encourage quality time for the entire family. Probably like people say, researchers say, digital fasting is one of the best technique to use, which means that there has to be a protected time in the family where nobody uses technology, nobody uses devices, and there is a lot of social life, a lot of engagement, talking, communication. That's actually the key. At this point of time, I could actually advise. But if there are serious problems, then one has to actually make a decision to approach to professionals. For example, we have in NIMHANS digital detox app is there, or we have a short clinic at NIMHANS. Anybody can actually utilize the services there, so that we will be able to give individualized care plan for them.
So fascinating insights. I think it's extremely important for parents to understand this. More care and less control is the prescription?
Balance of both.
A balance of both. A balance of both. Thank you so much, Dr. Bino Thomas, for that study as well as sharing those thoughts. Obviously, it could help enormous number of parents who struggle with fighting internet addiction amongst their children. One needs to reflect at the parental behavior as well. And as Dr. Bino Thomas points out, other factors are there. This is also one factor.